All right, so we're diving into something pretty interesting today, circling around Joe Rogan and the UFC.
Yeah, this should be good.
So we all know Joe Rogan, right?
Yeah.
Like he's basically Mr. UFC pay-per-view.
Right, the voice of the Octagon?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was kind of weird when he said he's skipping UFC 315 in Montreal this May.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Huge. And his reason, get this, he said he'd rather go to Russia than Canada.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's definitely going to raise some eyebrows right there.
Definitely. And it's got people digging a little deeper.
Yeah, I mean, you got to wonder what's really going on there, right? He also skipped UFC 297 in Toronto earlier this year.
Right.
And he said before that he's not a big fan of all the travel for international events, but...
Yeah. About Russia.
Yeah, the Russia comment makes you think it's maybe something more, especially with his whole, support for Trump thing.
Yeah, that's a good point, because then you start thinking about the whole U.S.-Canada trade war thing that was going on with Trump.
Right, all those tariffs on Canadian goods.
Exactly. Do you remember all that? It's a big deal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And then you got Trump making those jokes about making Canada the 51st state.
I mean, it was kind of funny, but...
Yeah, it was a joke, but it was also, during some pretty serious economic tension between the two countries.
For sure. And the crazy part is Rogan actually talked to Trump about this on his podcast.
No way.
Yeah, Trump was joking about calling Trudeau governor.
Oh, man.
And even said annexing Canada was a good idea.
What? What did Rogan say to that?
He shut it down pretty quick, called it crazy, and said it would never happen.
That's wild.
It is pretty wild, but it is interesting to remember they were talking about the old Trudeau.
Right, not the current prime minister.
Exactly, because the current guy, Mark Carney, actually called an early election partly because of Trump.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he called it a significant crisis because of Trump's trade policies and threats to Canadian sovereignty.
So basically there was some serious bad blood there for a while.
Yeah, big time. And, just for context, UFC 315 is stacked.
Oh, yeah.
Bilal Muhammad versus Jack Della Maddalena for the welterweight title, and Valentina Shevchenko against Manon Fiorot for the women's flyweight title.
Those are some huge fights.
It's a big deal, and usually Rogan's all over events like that.
Right, and then you add in the fact that Dana White's a huge Trump supporter.
Yeah, didn't he speak at one of his rallies?
He did, right after Trump won, and he even thanked Rogan during his speech.
Wow, so it's like all these dots start connecting, right?
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating.
You've got Rogan, who's publicly pro-Trump, skipping a major UFC event in Canada, a country that had a ton of beef with the U.S. under Trump.
And then he says he'd rather go to Russia.
It's a lot to unpack, even if he meant it as a joke.
It definitely makes you think, doesn't it? Like, what does all this tell us about the connection between sports figures, their politics, and international relations? It's not just about the fights anymore, is it?
Definitely something to think about.
Yeah, it's a whole other level to the game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's our deep dive for today. We'll catch you next time.
See.